Hello, my heartfelt leaders. You are listening to Practicing Life podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Pitzer. And today we're talking about the habit of being overwhelmed. I just got off a call, and this coaching call really inspired me to leave this message out to you, to the audience of Practicing Life podcast. You see, the thing about it is being busy with our thoughts and our actions is a habit. It's something that we have learned to do, and it has gotten us results somewhere along the way. It has gotten us some type of reward, and therefore we continue to do it. Habits in our brain are subconscious. They're things that we have done over and over until they're habitualized and they're no longer thought about, which conserves energy, it conserves the mental space within ourselves. And I think it's really ironic, right? Because when you are feeling overwhelmed, traditionally, you're overthinking. So, there can be situations where you might feel overwhelmed because of a circumstance that you are in that is unusual or in danger or alarming. But for many of the people out there on a daily basis that experience chronic overwhelm, it is a lot of plate spinning. It is a lot of overthinking, overanalyzing. And so today's episode, I'm going to tell you, stop it. No, I'm going to tell you that it is something that has become a habit for you. And if you're to the point now that you wish it wasn't so, you wish you weren't in overwhelm, you were looking for a different result, then the change, the transformation comes from doing something differently. So that's really simple. It's oversimplified, but let's talk about this for just a minute, because when you are in overwhelm, your body starts to develop physiological responses. So you might feel anxiety, your heart pumping, you might get a headache, you might feel like there's weight on your chest. And so what's really interesting about this from my hypnosis perspective is that you can habitualize the spinning of your thoughts and thinking a thought over and over and over and not even knowing you're thinking it. It's just running in the background, like the batteries on your computer are running, like it's just going without even thinking about it. But you can also habitualize the feelings, the physiological responses that come up, right? So when you want to make this transformation, it's about starting small. Your brain likes simple. Your brain likes to focus on one thing, especially when it's changing something. So when you're wanting to change a behavior, whatever it may be, if maybe it's not overwhelmed that you're wanting to change today, whatever your behavior that you currently have and you've habitualized, when you want to change that behavior, it requires taking small, consistent steps. There is power to small, consistent steps. Let me say that again, because this is the whole point of the podcast today. The power of small, consistent steps. So overwhelm. Let's talk about that. What reward are you getting for being in overwhelm? Because if you weren't getting a reward, you wouldn't be doing it. If you met with me and I was coaching you and hypnotizing with you, I'd be sitting down with you, having a one-on-one conversation and helping you to identify what that secondary gain is. So let me give you an example in my own personal life. I felt a lot of overwhelm around being a parent. I have a kid with needs. I felt like I was the only person. I felt like anybody else who I had, they either didn't do a good enough job, or they weren't attentive to my kid, or they didn't fit into my schedule the way I wanted. Very controlling. Can you see that? But anyway, when I was going through this type of behavior and I wanted to change it, I had to look at what benefit I was getting by being the sole person to take care of my kid, right? So that can be like a savior complex. It can be the fact that I was needed. She needed me, and therefore I was needed and valuable, right? That is a secondary gain. So anytime you're going to change a behavior, bringing awareness to what you're getting out of it is really important. Awareness is like shining a flashlight into the dark and bringing light, a spotlight on what it is that you weren't able to see without the flashlight, without awareness. And bringing awareness, self-reflecting on some of these questions that I ask you is going to help you greatly. Because if you don't change what you're doing right now and you are already realizing that you're tired of some of these physiological experiences that you're having, if you're tired of being tired, if you're tired of getting sick, if you're tired of experiencing exhaustion and burnout, and it's painful enough, then you have to ask yourself, are you willing to detach from the secondary gain that you are getting? Because that's like you're competing against yourself. It's you against you. It's your thoughts and it's your secondary gains that are going to be competing against the other vision of you. You being relaxed, you having a clear mind, you having, peace, whatever it is that you're looking for, you having energy. So if let's just take energy, right? Because most of us like energy. That's a general assumption that most of us like energy. All right. So in overwhelm, you might say that let's just go here for 1 second, pausing where I was going. You might think that you thrive in overwhelm. That can be a secondary gain too, but that is only a short-term secondary gain, which most of the time that's the case. So here you have this short-term benefit. You went into overdrive, your overthinking caused you to get something done, to get motivated, whatever it may be. But then when you look at the long-term picture, were you exhausted? Did you crash and burn? Did you miss something in your life that was really important? Something with your kids, an appointment, a doctor's appointment, whatever it may be. Like, what did being an overwhelm cost you? And for those of you that are having the habit of repeating this, well, that's what a habit is. You're repeating something, right? But when you are in the habit of being an overwhelm, and you even if you are looking at the cost, you may be subconsciously, unconsciously, unaware saying, well, the cost isn't as important as being in overwhelm. I am attached to being in overwhelm. It has worked for me. I have survived. This is kind of how your brain thinks. Your brain thinks that you need this habit to survive. The subconscious part of your brain does, because you've done it so much, and to conserve energy, it repeats this behavior on autopilot for you to create more mental space for you, which is ironic, right? Like to take less energy. It habitualizes this, but you actually have the self-sabotaging behavior of overthinking, of being an overwhelm, which is counterproductive. But the point being that you're choosing your reward, and you're choosing which one is the least damaging or the least cost on a subconscious level, not on a logical level. Because if I sat down with you and we thought left brain and we talked analytically to each other, you would be like, yeah, I know this doesn't work for me, but I keep doing it. Like the common thing I hear is, why do I keep doing what I know I don't want to do? It's because it's running in the back of your mind on repeat in a loop. It loops so much you don't even pay attention to it. There's no flashlight on it. And it just continues to do. And your brain likes it because it thinks it's keeping you safe. It thinks it's keeping you out of the lion's den. Okay? So your front part of your brain is the part that actually thinks and has cognitive power. The back part of your brain, the subconscious part of your brain, just says, This is what we have always done, and so we'll continue to do it. It is a motor. It runs. It's waiting for the instruction from your prefrontal cortex. And so when you start to make a change, if you choose to make a change, I can tell you, usually, most people are unwilling, you are unwilling to make a change until it becomes so painful, uncomfortable, discomfort, alarming, that it kind of overrides your habitual habit that you've done all your life. Maybe not all your life, but for a period of time, right? So most people don't make a change until it becomes too uncomfortable, too unbearable. And until then, they're willing to pay the cost because they're still getting a reward. So this episode is about turning that flashlight on, your awareness on, and asking you, what do you really want? What do you really want? If you want to be in overwhelm and you want to keep plenty in your space, then you know that's going to result in you feeling more tired, worn out, blah, blah, blah. You already know this because the pattern is there. It exists. It keeps happening. If you're ready to make a change, the next step after you have your awareness on it is to decide to make a small change. The power of small, consistent steps. And here's where I want you to put the brake on. Brake. Stop right now. You're thinking. Hear me. If I was talking to kids, I'd say, put your listening ears on. Stop right now, you overthinker. I am not asking you to do more. I am not asking you to put another thing on your plate. So when I say take a small, consistent step, I am not asking you to do more. I am asking you actually to do less. Doing more isn't the answer. If you are an overthinker, if you are in overwhelm, doing more isn't the answer. I am going to ask you to take something off of your plate for good or for a period of time. I'm going to ask you to say no to something, and I'm going to ask you to reflect on why it is that you're doing what you're doing. What are you getting out of this? What is your reward? Does it make you feel valuable? Does it make you feel important? Does it make you feel needed? What is more important? For you to feel valuable, important, and needed, or for you to love yourself enough? Because like my mentor, Jim Fortin says, if you love yourself enough, you will take care of what you love and you value. Do you love yourself enough to create that sense of love and being important and being valuable and being needed, an emotional response within yourself without doing external actions and getting external approval, so that you can stop being in overwhelm? And I'm not asking you, so here's again, stop, put the brakes on. I am not asking you to change everything. So let me give you a little scenario of what an overthinker is like. Somebody who's often in overwhelm. I'm going to give you a scenario. If I asked you, to declutter something in your house, an overthinker starts going into overdrive. And so they're like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can get the kitchen done. I can get the laundry room done. I can get my bedrooms done and my closet. I'll just do all of that this weekend. A person who's not in overwhelm and overdrive, and I ask them to do that, they'll probably narrow it down to, yeah, I need to go through my closet. But me as a coach, asking you, overdrive, overthinker, late spinner, to declutter something with the mentality of doing less. I would be telling you to do one drawer and stop. And you will notice that it is hard for you to stop because it's a habit to keep going, to do more. And. Like that's how your brain is running. And it takes time to make a change, a habitual change. Everybody is different. Technically, if something is super impactful to you, you can make a change instantly. But, from a scientific brain study, most people take somewhere between 67, to 90 days to create a new habit. And so I would be asking you, if we were in that scenario, to just do one small little space and stop and work through the discomfort of telling yourself, stop, no more, I'm done. And train yourself to be comfortable in a situation where it doesn't matter and there's no consequences, right? So I'm asking you, if you continue on this path right now of being in overwhelm and being in overdrive and overthinking and spinning and taking on more and making everything a priority, which that's a society thing, at least in the United States. Priority by definition is one thing. Only one thing can be a priority. Focus on one thing. But, socially, we have taken priority being like a top 5 things. And then an overthinker, overwhelmed person, their priority is like 20 things. That's the psychology behind how you're thinking and how you're processing and how big picture you're looking at it, right? One of the things that you may have heard if you've ever gotten counseling on this is don't eat the elephant all at once. You take it bite by bite. Overwhelm is when you try to do it all at once. This huge master project. Everything is on your shoulders. Everything is like fire. When is that going to work for you and when is it not? Because if you continue on this path and you keep doing what you're doing, where are you going to be 1 year from now? Where are you going to be 5 years from now? How's your health going to be? How's your mental state going to be? I just have a personal theory, no science behind this, no logic. It's just a gut feeling about it. But I personally kind of feel like I have met a lot of people that have experienced dementia very early in their life that were in careers that were very taxing on your mind, lots of overwhelm and lots of overanalyzing and overthinking, a lot of pressure, a lot of working long hours. And I've met tons of people that have had, these type of careers and had early dementia. And I always just wonder, is there a correlation between that? I haven't done the research on it. I'm not here to scientifically prove anything. But I've met the people who are type B personalities and they're really laid back and chill, right? And they don't get into overwhelm and they don't get into anything. They have the opposite problem. It's harder to push them and motivate them to go. And you can definitely see the difference in their mental capabilities and space in their head when they're older. All right, that was just a little side story. Let's get on to track. When you are in overwhelm, you're in a sprint and everything is a fire and it's go, 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 and everything has priority. And overwhelm is a key, a big red flag to say you don't know how to prioritize. You don't know how to let certain things go. Overwhelm means everything is on fire and you're in a sprint to do it all. Can you stop? Can you learn to stop? Can you habitualize stopping. Can you start with one small, insignificant task and learn to stop and be comfortable with it, and then build and build and build? Can you say no to one thing that's currently on your plate? Can you go to whoever that is your person that you're responsible for getting X, Y, and Z to, and can you say, hey, you know what? I thought I could take this on. It turns out I can't. How can we accommodate each other and allow me to step down from this a little bit? Like, what can you do right now not to take anything else on? What can you do to delegate something to somebody else and put trust in them? What can you do to be okay with things not being perfect? And I'm going to talk to you all right now about this because I was an extreme perfectionist and I spent a lot of time working on this, to let go of this and to be okay. And from my heart, I am telling you, I understand the need to perfect because it keeps you safe and your brain likes safe. And therefore you have that extra added like cushion of your brain wanting to hold on to this as something, as a safety measure. But perfectionism, it works in the short term, but it has very long-term consequences. Do you want to keep doing that? Do you want to keep doing that to yourself? Do you want to keep berating yourself and pushing yourself and never having a limit to say it's good enough? Do you want to keep putting your value and your worth in the hands of other people and asking for their permission for it to be good enough? These are all questions to ask. I can't answer them for you. They're individual. Maybe you do. Even when I started working on perfectionism, and I was only working for myself, so I didn't even have a boss to say, yes, this is good and get his approval for, I still struggled at that time with perfectionism and stopping and saying it was good enough. Like it was a process. It was a process where I had to set like time limits and things like that to control letting go of control, letting myself know that this is it. So when it becomes painful enough, I know you will change. But right now, it might be painful in a moment. It might be painful for 10 minutes. It might be painful a day, but then you revert back into whatever reward it is that it's getting you. And is that reward really worth it now? Is it really providing you the value that it provided you when you first started doing this habit? Because we change, we evolve, we grow. And your brain operates at its best when you're treating it like it's running a marathon, not a sprint. Because your brain is going all day long, essentially. Even when you're sleeping, parts of your brain are still working. Naturally, your subconscious is working. Otherwise, you wouldn't be breathing, your heart wouldn't be pumping. So your brain is working all the time. And one of the things you may have noticed, especially if you're in perfectionism and overthinking, is a lot of ideas come to you when you're driving or when you're in the shower. You know why that is? It's because it's probably the only times during the day when you're not forcing it to work and to solve a problem and to get something done and to be on focus and be on task. And it gets a break and it can breathe and an original thought can actually come through. So what do you want? Is overdrive and overthinking and spinning your plate really worth it? Being busy is a habit. In their secondary gains. Maybe being busy means that you can avoid certain people. Like for instance, on the perfectionism, it's not the same thing as being busy, but perfectionism allowed me to escape being judged, criticized. I avoided a lot of scrutiny, right? So I made sure that I scrutinized myself and berated myself so nobody else had the space to do it because the work was too good. There was the benefit. I could avoid judgment. What was the cost? The cost was I was working long hours. I was missing time with my kids. I was getting burnt out. I was experiencing adrenal fatigue. I was losing connections with friends and family, with my husband, with my kids. There are a lot of costs, but when you don't pause long enough to look at it, it's only the things that are immediate that are drawing your attention. I was so tired. I was sick and I was so tired. And I don't want that for you. I want you to have the best life. I want you to be vibrant. I want you to have the life that you want, not the life that I want for you. And so when I talk about it's you versus you might have this vision of what you want that you currently don't have. And then you have what you have. What's reality? It's you versus you. And so are you willing to let go of your attachment to whatever secondary gain, whatever reward you're getting that you currently have that's in your life, that is a pattern that is repeating? Are you willing to let go of it? Which means there's going to be some discomfort. Because when you let go of a habit that you've done forever and your brain is going, warning, warning, you're doing something that's not safe, it is going to try to trick you. It is going to try to talk you into going back to that habit. It is going to do everything in its power to keep you safe because it loves you. And your brain loves you. And your brain, your subconscious part of your brain doesn't have the cognitive function. Your subconscious brain is like a 4 or 5-year-old. And so your 4 or 5-year-old is saying, wait, no, this is scary. Don't do this. This is safe. Stay the same. You versus you. I'm telling you. And I really hope you're listening, because you could pay me lots of money and we could sit down and we could do one-on-one sessions and coachings and we can do this. But here you are listening to this podcast, getting amazing advice right now, amazing, scientific, proven advice. All you have to do is make one small, consistent change over and over. The 67 to 90 days, make it a habit. Don't try to eat the whole elephant all at once. Don't try to declutter everything at all at once. And by that, I mean, don't try to solve all of your problems and get everything that's causing you overwhelm off of your plate. That's not realistic. And your brain is going to fight even harder. Your subconscious 5-year-old self is going to throw the biggest tantrum, is going to make it really inconvenient and comfortable for you. Breathe. Take one small, consistent step. Focus. Shine your flashlight on one thing, whatever it's going to be. I'm going to say no to any additional responsibilities until I finish this task. I am going to, like in my case, I hired a sitter, so I had time to do other things. One small thing. And then stack it. Once that is done, once that is accomplished, move to your next habit and establish it. When I'm working with people, when I'm doing physical training, like not physical therapy, but personal training, this is what I used to do. When I'm working with them, I don't ask them if they're training for a marathon, I don't ask them to go out and run 19 miles on day one. I build and I make sure they're successful. And then I build a little bit more and I make sure they're successful. Small, consistent steps. That is your takeaway. That is your takeaway. The power of small, consistent steps to make your transformation. Transformation just means change. To make the change that you want to make. Okay? So that is what we are here to talk about. And just so you all know, because I'm wrapping everything up, my book, The Birth Challenge, which is a futuristic fantasy world where the main character is Sabina. is facing many tasks right now after discovering that there has been hidden truths that her father kept from her, and she is transitioning into an adult and having to select what she does for her vocation. And at the same time, the dark sorcerer, the dark one, is out there waiting, hoping to find one particular person for something. But you'll have to read the book to find out. All right. Much love to you guys. I will see you next week. Make that one small, consistent change. You matter.